Hello, today's video is going to be a review of the play The Crucible by Arthur Miller. Now this play is set in Salem at the time of the witch trials, and it's just about that basically. We follow a small Christian community. You could almost say they were Amish because they're very Christian, they're very strict Christian, and it's just a small town of people who all believe that one girl has been affected by the devil. Now, they don't really know how the devil's affected her. I would say this is always borderline like a possession story, really. They're saying she's been contacted by the devil, so possessed, and then they have to work out what to do. So around this time, if you were found to be a witch, it was a crime and you would be hung. It's an incredibly shouty play. By that I mean it's just everyone shouting at each other, and sometimes you can't really understand what people are saying and you don't really get at certain points and it can get a bit confusing, but I think that highlights the time that everyone was shouting at each other. No one wanted to be branded a witch or anyone in their family to be a witch. They were just shouting and shouting and shouting, and they didn't know any of the right information. I would say the writing isn't as beautiful as some of his other plays, but I think he does that intentionally. Like for example in Death of the Salesman, there's such beautiful parts when Eddie is talking about himself and the people around him and what he thinks now looking back on his life. That's stunning writing. But in this it's very simple, but he references to it because at one point one of the girls says to one of the men, that's a very base question, and base basically means like unintelligent, very base level. And I think that's intentional because a lot of people in this town, as I said, they're like almost Amish, they're not very well educated, they're farmers, and they haven't been outside of their town. They're born in that town, they die in their town, they don't see anyone else or any other cultures. One thing I would say is if you're going to read this book, read it one time, take it as it is, enjoy it. But in your second reading, I have a very interesting thing for you to think about. Arthur Miller was asked what he thought of the Salem witch trials, and he obviously thought they were a hideous thing and it was awful, but he also said the facts that have come out about it now are very interesting and I added a few of them into the book. So it has been proved now in certain cases, not all cases, that the girls that were accused of being witches were sexually abused. And so some of their things make sense, and when you read this after knowing that fact, things start to make sense. So the girls would say stuff like, he came in my room in the dead of the night, he came through my window, he's taken my innocence, I am evil now, I am a sinner. And people would think in this small, very Christian society that she's a devil, she's possessed, she's a witch and all this. But really what had happened is the women were suffering from shock and they couldn't articulate the things that they wanted to say. I just think this is a really interesting part of time. I think it's an incredibly sad part of time. And I think this book is incredibly important because it doesn't try to make light of anything, it just shows you it plain and bare. I think that's what Arthur Miller does in everything. He doesn't try to make it like, so this happens, then that happens, and she flies in the air, or anything like that. He just gives you raw emotions and raw people. One more thing about the book that I think makes the book work so well, I promise this is the last thing, I'll go in a minute, you can have your day back, but one last thing is that I find the book is a series of coincidence. And that is so well done. I'm not going to say any more, but everything ties in. Somebody does something, someone else does something, and it's just a coincidence. But because you're living in such a, like, everyone's on top of each other, everyone is so obsessed with the devil, the smallest and most innocent things are magnified and turned into something that they're not. Arthur Miller is a great writer anyway, and I hope you pick it up and I hope you read it. So this is the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you very soon.